Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 149 of In a Good Way podcast. Today's special guest is Nicole Kerr. She is an NDE and STE experiencer. She is also the author of You Are Deathless, which speaks about her near-death experience and everything that it taught her. She's also an award-winning health expert, a registered dietitian, and she is a Neuro Emotional Technique practitioner. Thank you so much, Nicole, for being here. It's an honor.
Oh, thank you, Omar, so much for having me on your show. I look forward to our discussion today.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, I usually ask my guests about, when they were younger, if they already were experiencing anything spiritual. And so of course I wanted to ask you that. And then, I love your story. It's fascinating, right? Especially that about going to, and we already talked briefly about how it is that I came to find you, so that's what really interested me about your journey. So we can jump into the near death experience after that. But if you don't mind, was there anything, or did you already have family members that were spiritual? Because sometimes it's said that it's passed down. So was there anything when you were younger that you were experiencing?
I can tell you from my experience, I grew up Southern Baptist and Lutheran. So I was raised in both of those religions, and I never even allowed my spiritual side to really open up and develop because those particular religions are very concrete, they're very narrow, they have rules that you have to abide by. And they cause a lot of fear. So we weren't allowed to really question the religion, question the pastors, question the doctrines and the theology. We were just told we had to believe what we were being told. So I would say my mother and my grandmother, though, they were both born in the Ukraine and they both had spiritual gifts, but they
Mm.
unfortunately had to shut those down in order to survive World War II. And then they came to America and once again got indoctrinated into the religious sectors and were told to shut down those gifts.
Wow.
So they have not been allowed to come out and quote bear fruit, so to speak. And it didn't happen for me until my near-death experience when I was 19 years old.
Wow. Okay. So do you feel now, knowing that, do you feel that it was like inherited, or?
I think we all have the
Mm.
capability to have what I want to say, we all have that gift of intuition. It's a muscle and it is something that we have to work toward developing and to start trusting ourselves. But there are 8 different clairs. So you can get information from the spiritual realm, through clairaudience, through clairsentience. I mean, there's multiple ways, and most of us have several ways to do that. So I would encourage everyone to not let people tell you what you can and can't receive from the other side. This is about your journey and your ability to connect with your angels, your guides, your ancestors, all your loved ones on the other side. There's a whole realm on this other side, Omar, that that is willing to help us, but we have to ask them for help because we have free will. And that was one of the messages I got on the other side was the angels in particular want us to ask for help. They are there
Mm.
and they're ready to help us. And we have to suspend any disbelief we have and be open that they can appear to us in a myriad of ways.
Oh, wow. Okay. So I know you speak about that. So I guess let's jump right into the
Okay.
NDE. So we could come
Well,
back
okay.
to that as well.
Yeah, so I will tell you, it happened to me when I was 19 years old. I was a sophomore cadet at the United States Air Force Academy in Colorado Springs, Colorado. Now, this was at a time when the women were just admitted to the service academy. So I was in the 6th class of women, and it was a very abusive time. Physically, mentally, spiritually, and emotionally. And I will tell you, I did not want to be there. But in my family, failure is not an option.
Mm.
Okay. If you sign up to do something, especially to go through the arduous process of and the rigor of getting accepted into one of these academies, then you better show up and you better go and you better complete it. That's my dad's way of parenting and mentoring. And I just knew that if I made it through the interview process, then I had to go. And so I did. I got accepted, and I thought, oh gosh, now I've got to actually show up and go.
Mm,
And when I showed up the first couple of days, I could tell you, Omar, I knew I was in the wrong place. I did not want to learn how to basically kill people, which is what the military is about, is you have to defend the US and, be prepared to kill your enemies. And my
mm,
soul was just screaming, this is not for you. This is not the path that you've chosen, but I could not hear it and I could not voice my truth. I couldn't say, I'm going to quit. I couldn't deal with the humiliation, the shame, the embarrassment. I was just too self-conscious and too hooked into my identity being this woman from Mississippi, going, one of the first few women going to the Air Force Academy, and the pride that my dad felt with that. I just couldn't bear that shame of disappointing him.
mm.
So I stuck it out, and I was terrified every single day because it is basically hell the first year, especially for any cadet. So the second year starts, and I still don't want to be there, but I still can't quit. Okay. So what my soul does is it gets me out of the academy in a way that could, quote, save face. And when you look at this picture, you think, how could anybody save face with that? But
Wow.
I will tell you, this is a 1965 Corvette convertible. I was
Wow.
the passenger in it. And you can see that is actually the passenger seat there.
Oh, wow.
So I was coming back from a squadron function and I asked a senior cadet to get a ride back. We were the last to leave this function, and he said, sure, he'd be happy to, but he wanted to stop at a bar first and have a couple of drinks. Now, my dad had three rules for me going off to the academy: no drinking, no smoking, and no dating cadets.
Mm.
Okay, now there, Omar, goes all the fun out of college, right? I mean, that's what you go to college for, is you go to have fun and start dating and start rebelling if you didn't do that starting at age 12 or 13 in your family. So the first time, no kidding, the first time I say, okay, I'm going to go to a bar and have a beer, I'm going to smoke a cigarette, you know, boom, I had that accident happen to me. And you want to talk about learning the lesson not to follow your dad's rules or something bad's going to happen to you. Man, I got hit with that big time. So what happened, I later found out, because I was pronounced dead at the scene. I later found out that my memory came back 19 years later. Let me just say that. And so I have my memory, I have all the healthcare, the doctor, the EMT, the nurse, everyone that worked on me. I have their reports. I have the district attorney's report. So I have this whole accident crash documented. And what happened was we stopped at the bar, and like I said, had a couple of drinks. The bartender asked him if he was okay to drive, and he said yes. We got in his car and he wanted to stop and look at the Rocky Mountains. Now, in my naivety, because I had never dated before. Okay, here I
Mm.
am, 19 years old. I've never gone on a date. Can you
Oh, wow.
imagine that? Okay, and I'm with 4,000 guys in school. Okay, but my dad's like, don't date cadets. So I listened to him, and then I'm thinking, okay, I got to get back to the academy. We have a curfew. And he's like, no, let's just look at the sun setting. He had a whole other agenda that I was just really naive about,
Mm.
and he wanted to make out. And so I'm like, no, we got to get back. So we get back on the road. And that's the last thing I remember until I woke up in the hospital the next day in the ICU in horrific pain. So let's back up. What happened? Well, turns out that he tried to make a sexual pass at me while he was driving. I
Oh,
said no, and he got very angry with me, and he turned the steering wheel of the Corvette. It fishtailed out, happened to hit this huge boulder that was there, moved the boulder, flipped the car over. We both were thrown out of the car. We did not have seatbelts on, which in this case saved our lives.
oh, wow.
Okay, since we were both thrown out of the car because the car wound up flipping and landing on its top. So we would have been crushed to death. Some bystanders heard the crash, called 911. They came over to me, could not get any vitals on me, so they put a blanket over me. And it took the first responders between 10 and 13 minutes to get there. So they estimated that I was clinically dead that long.
Wow.
When the EMT, who's one of my angels, and I do believe, and I know they're angels, okay, and they come in many forms. And in this case, they came in a human form with John. He got to the scene. He was the first one there from the EMS side, took the blanket off of me, could not get any vitals himself. So he did something called a sternal knuckle press, which
Mm.
is designed to produce pain in the body. And so the only sign of life he could get out of me, Omar, was my right pupil dilated and
Oh, wow.
flinched. Now, you know that saying, our eyes are the window to our soul?
Yes.
Guess what happened at that moment? I was already on the other side. Okay, I was gone. There was no life in me. But when he did that, my soul, which was on the other side, comes back in through my eye, into my body, and starts me breathing again. And he
Wow.
got a blood pressure on me of 60 over zero.
Mm.
Okay. 120 over 80 is normal. So 60 over zero is still going in between life and death.
Mm.
Okay, so they start CPR on me. They get me these mask pants to stop all the blood. I had massive injuries. I'd cut my left foot off. I had severed my right wrist, broken my pelvis on both sides, had a huge gash in between my legs, cut up all that in there, and I had a horrific burn, road burn on my face from skidding on the gravel and stuff. So I was just a broken mess
Mm.
physically. They got me into the bus, got me to the nearest community hospital where a team of doctors was on call and just basically tried to save my life that night, just stabilize me.
Mm.
Then I wound up on a 4-month journey in the hospital, 7 weeks in ICU, 4 months in the hospital, going through 6 major operations, another code blue in one of the emergency surgeries where my heart stopped on the operating table. They called time of death. They told my parents, Nicole's passed away. We couldn't save her. Told my parents to start funeral preparations. And then I had left my body again. I was going to find the white light again because I didn't want to be in my body. So off I went. And all of a sudden, my angel gets me and brings me back in my body and says, no, you got to go. You got to keep on this path. We're going to keep bringing you back. So my heart starts up again on its own. 2 to 3 minutes later, the doctor still to this day can't explain it. My
Mm.
doctor just gave up on me. She just says, it's a God thing. She didn't believe in
Wow.
NDEs prior to this, but she does now. And she
Ah.
said, because you are beyond medical, you're a medical mystery why these things keep happening to you. And so I had more than one near-death experience. I like to
Mm.
call it back from death, BFD, because I actually was pronounced dead. It wasn't
Wow.
close to death, it was death.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Yeah. So it's a little bit different phrasing, which has a little different impact, I think.
Mm.
So back to the car, accident, my memory, all I could remember from that when I woke up in the ICU, besides fearing my dad's wrath, okay, that I let him down, I broke his rules, okay, and then he was going to be so mad at me. That's what I woke up thinking, okay,
Mm.
because I was such a people pleaser and parent pleaser. Uh, but this is common with most NDE experiences is this bright, clear white light. And I saw that and I remembered that. That was the only thing I remembered about the crash for 19 years. It was like rays of brilliant white light that flooded me from all sides. And it was really like I was an astronaut in outer space full of like awe and wonder. And I was kind of like in this chrysalis of soothing waves. And I know now that that's love, that
Mm.
feeling of just, every part of me was just wrapped in this brilliant light of love. And it wasn't like a deer in the headlight light where you're kind of shocked with it. It's just you could like see through it, and it was just indescribable brilliance. Um, and I can't even really put it in words. I mean, that's as best I can do to describe it, but it really is the single most common characteristic that NDEs experienced is some
Mm.
form of this white light. So that was all I remembered. And I asked the surgeon, I said, because I doubted that and I doubted my memory. I said, could it have been the operating room lights? Could I have woken up during during the operations? And she said, no, Nicole, you are totally unconscious. And she said, it's something mystical and mysterious and greater than the scientific community understands. So she said, I think you're right on track with your NDE. And then fast forward 19 years, I'm working at the Centers for Disease Convention. I go to work, stop at Starbucks, get my coffee, and lo and behold, Omar, as I'm driving, all of a sudden, I see myself sitting in the passenger side of the Corvette. One foot is on the dashboard, the other one's crossed over, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm in the car again. So I
Wow.
go to my chiropractor. I don't go to work. And I sit there for several hours because he was full. And then he finally gets me and he said, Nicole, these are repressed memories. And I said, what do you mean? 19 years later, I'm remembering this? And he said, yeah. He said, the body remembers this kind of stuff, and you were traumatized. And until you feel safe and until you have a way you're supported to release these memories, that you're going to be okay, that, you're believed. He said they usually don't surface. And so I will tell you now, my guides on the other side said, it's been 19 years. It's time now that you remember and get on with your mission. Because
Mm.
my mission was, when I remembered this, going to the other side, this angel came down and took me as I was going butt up through the windshield. I got caught in the air, and I could remember looking down thinking, I'm going to die. And I called out, oh my God, help me. And at that moment, an angel came down and took me up to the other side, which I call heaven.
Mm.
And it was a male angel. And in my book, I call him Casper the Friendly Ghost, because he was translucent. You know how Casper's translucent? You can kind of see through him, but he has a shape to him.
Mm.
And I will tell you, it was only right after I published my book, so 2 years ago, I now know that that angel is my grandfather on my paternal side.
Wow.
He saw the pain and the abuse and the suffering that I was going through, and he helped me get out of that. And he told me when I was on the other side that he would be with me until like uh, I died for the last time on earth, that I left.
Mm.
So he is one of my team of angels now. But it's so cool because I'd always heard that deceased loved ones are on the other side, and that a lot of NDE people say that they interacted with someone they knew on the other side. And I just didn't, I had the angel, but I didn't have an identity other than they were male and maybe in their 30s. And most of the time, when you reconnect with a deceased loved one, they are in their 30s when you see them on the other side. They're not
Mm.
old and elderly and frail. They're kind of like they were at the height of their life, which is cool. And another thing that was interesting is my grandfather, when he was on Earth, he was an alcoholic. And the guy that was driving the car, I later learned, was an alcoholic. So it doesn't transfer when you go to the other side that you are an alcoholic. That all just gets wiped. But it's interesting that they both had that same addiction.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And and what do you think that was? Like a way of paying back a karmic debt kind of thing, or
Well, I think our loved ones are always with us on the other side, and they're trying to look out for our highest and greatest good. And sometimes we are not connected with them, and not but they're connected with us, and maybe we have a relationship that we don't really get to share with them until we have this kind of experience. So
Mm.
I feel closer now to my grandfather than I did when he was alive. I mean, he died when I was 7 years old of a massive heart attack
Wow.
at 58 years old. And so 2 years ago I was 58 years old, and he said,
Mm.
now is the age that I'm dying, that I need to tell you I was the one that actually came and helped you to cross over to the other side. And I'm like, wow, you think you could have done this earlier? You know? So, it's just interesting how these things happen, because I can tell you, when you pass, your deceased loved ones do, especially your mother and your father, they do come and they escort you to the other side. But not only will they be over there, your pets will be over there as
Mm.
well. And I will tell you, do you have pets, Omar?
Absolutely.
Okay,
Absolutely.
so you can understand how some people in their life may never receive unconditional love other than if they have a pet and they get that from their pet. So I will tell you, they have souls and they do go to the other side. Why would the creator, God, source, whatever you want to call it, that that has created these fur feather friends and
Mm.
just these beautiful little baby beings that give us so much joy. Why wouldn't it allow those to be on the other side since they brought us so much happiness here? So they are there, and you will see, all of your pets on the other side. So I want people to not worry about that. They're going to be there. They are there. And you can interact with them from this realm as well. So let's put that one off the table. You don't have to
Mm,
worry about that. The pets will be there.
absolutely. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. You know, and that happened I remember one of my pets after it passed, I saw him in a dream and I was really happy. But some of the other ones I never did see them in a dream, so I was always wondering like, "Oh man, like why didn't I get to see them but just that one?" So, do you know anything about that, or regardless we're going to see them all once we pass, right?
You're going to see them all once you pass, but here's the deal. They're off there they're in a happy state. So unless you need them and need them for
Oh.
something, they're like, I've got things to do on this side. So yeah, it's kind of cool though. But I
Yeah.
want to go back to the NDE because when I went over to the other side, I want people to understand that they don't speak English over there. Okay.
Mm,
You're in a transformed state. You're not in your physical body. The title of my book is called You Are Deathless. And the first lesson I want people to understand is we don't die.
mm,
We physically, yes, this physical body is going to decay and die, but our soul, that consciousness, that breath that keeps us alive, that is eternal. That's what goes on. And on the other side, I was able to understand and interact with other beings, other angels in this case, through vibration and through telepathy. So there
mm,
were two angels next to me that were talking, and they were saying how we here on earth need to ask our angels for help. We have something called free will here, which means we have a choice. We get to decide if we want to do something or not. So the angels are not going to interfere in our lives unless they're asked.
mm.
So please ask your angels, your guides, for help, even as small as a parking space. I know that sounds crazy, but if you need help, ask them for it and get yourself in a dialogue or relationship with these spiritual beings, where you can start getting evidence that they are there for you and they do want your highest and greatest good. And prayer, I believe in prayer. Prayer is energy, Omar, and we're all energy at our
Mm.
core. That consciousness that leaves us, that's all energy. So I want people to understand that they are not alone. There's a whole spiritual realm waiting and available for, to help them. And so that is comforting when you realize you're not alone. And they will give you evidence and you can ask for evidence. And that's what's really cool is when you start getting it. Now, the way I pray now is I have to suspend what I think is the right outcome. And I pray in general for the highest and greatest good for that person or that situation. Because I don't know what that is. That person may need to die. They may be in so much pain, and I'm trying to pray for them to keep living.
Mm.
But that's what I want. Maybe their highest and greatest good is to go ahead and go on over to the other side. So I think when we let go of that attachment of what we think needs to happen, then we can release it for the highest and greatest good.
Absolutely. And you said that about how the signs, right? Like how you said you were brought up also in a religious setting. There was a time when, because I'm sure in the Bible it talks about like a foolish generation asks for signs or something, but I would ask for signs and get them. So that always kind of conflicted in my brain. Like, am I doing something wrong? But yeah, I love getting the signs. I think most people do, right? It lets you know that someone they're one with you and that sometimes you're on the right path. So how do you feel about, because I know you've experienced that, like you said, you were very conditioned by the religion, and then once you saw these other things, like how did it change your perspective?
I had to do a complete reboot on God.
Mm,
I had to go back and go through a reconceptualization of what I believe God, creator, universe, uh, divine intelligence, whatever you want to call it is. And I now know from my experience on the other side is that this creator, there's no beginning to, I still call it God. There's no beginning to God. There's no end. It's never ending. It's a divine intelligence that is greater than we could ever imagine. It is love. So any doctrine, religion, organization, person that associates God with fear, it is not really what and who God is.
Mm.
God is love, period. That's it. End of sentence. There's no God is love and judgment and this. And no, no, no. It's just pure and simple love. And that is the lesson all of us have come in to learn at one level of another, or one level or another, is to fundamentally learn to love ourselves, that we're all imperfect. We were not sent down here as perfect little beings to be clones. We're all here to learn this lesson of self-love, and therefore being able to transpose that onto the earth, to animals, all sentient beings, and one another, to love them regardless of race, sex, orientation, or any of that kind of stuff. Because the bottom line at the end of the day, Omar, on the other side, I'm going to give you it. It's love and oneness. There you
Mm.
go. That's it. We're all one. We're all this collectiveness of one, of this energy, and we're all love. So if we could learn that lesson right here, right now, and be of love and be realize that we're all connected, man, that would change the world. Our vibration would be so high, we wouldn't need these aliens coming over here to help us with this.
Absolutely. Why like being on the other side, because I know you spoke about, you were shown like, right, there's no judgment, even that has I guess been kind of placed over us, right, where everyone fears the judgment and this and that. So why has it stuck around so long where people can't break from that belief?
Because it is a fundamental rule in religion that God is love, but God is all, you're also to fear God and you have to fear his wrath. Okay. But I will tell you the words bad and good, those are earth terms.
Mm.
They were created by man here on earth in order to evaluate ourselves and one another. They do not transfer over to the other side. There is no bad on the other side. It's all good and greatness and brilliance. Okay. So if there's no bad, there's nothing to judge. And so what we need to learn here right now is to quit judging ourselves and to quit putting judgment ahead of love. Because when we're judging ourselves and others, we are not loving. And if we don't love, we're never going to get to peace. So we've got to put the love up there, do away with the judgment to get to peace.
Absolutely.
And
That ma-
so it doesn't exist on the other side. You're not, there's no judgment day that's going to happen. You're going to be sent to hell. Okay. Hell, people ask me, does hell exist? And I say, in the way that I was raised, the biblical one, where there's a devil and you, if you're bad and you're a sinner and you don't repent, you're going to hell. I said, hell no. I said, seriously, there's not some eternal fire going on down there, because as a kid, I got so scared and so confused that I was going to be eating barbecue every night because everything was burnt. And it's like, how do you take a shower when it's constantly in flames?
Mm.
And of course, that scares the pee-pee out of kids to think they'll be eternally separated from their parents and God. Nobody wants that. And to be in this place that's on fire. I said, hell exists here today. If you are in an active addiction, you are in hell.
Mm.
If you are in a war-torn country, you are in hell. Okay, so hell does exist on earth. It doesn't exist in terms of where you go to after this.
Mm.
Okay, it just doesn't. That's another false belief system created to keep you in fear. And that is what most religions do, is they're fear-based in order to control you. Because when you're in fear, Omar, this part of your brain is activated. It's called the amygdala,
Mm.
where your fight, flight, freeze thing is. Okay, reaction. When you're in here, you don't have clarity. So you're not going to make a decision for your highest and greatest good when you're back here reacting and stressed out. You have to get to this parasympathetic part, the prefrontal cortex, to make a rational, executive kind of functioning decision. So when you're making decisions back here because you're in fear and worry all the time, you're sabotaging yourself. And we can talk a
Mm.
long time about that whole thing, about how the brain works with that and emotions. But just know when you're caught up in fear and worry, spirit actually can't get through to you because you're so consumed with that. You're too
Wow.
dense with those emotions. Same thing with sadness. They're so heavy and dense in you, spirit can't get through to even get your attention. So you have to move those through you.
So do you think, or were you shown that what they do with the news and things like that, is it on purpose to keep pushing like the fear, 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 and all this stuff that?
Absolutely. And to
Mm,
produce chaos and to turn people against each other. Because love, think about if people could put as much energy into loving things as they do into negativity and hate, what a wonderful world we would be. But right now, we're so focused on judging people and hating this and the negativity of the news, feeding that into you all the time. Instead of you're constantly bombarded with information and you cannot get into inspiration unless you get
mm,
quiet. And that means turning off all those sources of inputs. So here's something cool when you're on the other side. Okay. We're talking about when I was over there, like I said, telepathy and vibration is how you hear things, okay? But when you see things in our eyes, we can only see what's in front of us and maybe 40 degrees outside of us.
mm.
So on the other side, your eyes can see 360 and into the future all at the same time.
Wow.
That's cool, isn't it?
Absolutely.
And in terms of hearing things, take your 7 top songs that you love and blend them all together into a vibrational song that you just go like, wow, this is so cool. It raises you up so high. So
Wow.
you can the music and the things that you hear there, it's just put into such a different vibrational hertz frequency. That's amazing. And colors, there's so many more colors than in the Crayola color box,
Mm.
or for women, you go in, you get your nails painted, they have all these colors on the wall of nail polishes. There's so many more colors than that. So it's so beautiful on the other side. I didn't want to come back. And when I was on the other side, my angel told me I was going to come back. And I was like, no, because I could see my body, Omar. I could see how mangled it was. And I thought, I don't want to get back in that body and not know if I can walk again, if I can go
Mm.
to the bathroom on my own. I had to have a colostomy. I mean, I got sepsis, I got gangrene. They almost amputated my whole leg off. I mean, I was a sick, sick girl for so long. And it's defined my whole adulthood, that accident has, and all the medical complications from it since then. And I didn't want to get back into it because I just didn't want to live with all those limitations. And then to be dependent on my parents again. I had to go back basically to infancy. I couldn't
Mm.
walk, I couldn't go to the bathroom, I couldn't feed myself. I mean, it was painful, a lot of pain and suffering. And I told my angel, I don't want to do that. I don't want to suffer like that. And he's like, Nicole, you got to go back because your mission is to tell people not to be afraid of death. Now, that may sound like a pretty easy mission, but it's taken me, well, for 20 years, I didn't even have the memory. And for the last 20, I've been working on my own spiritual transformative experience with the NDE to get to this place to publish my book, to be
Mm.
able to tell you the story. So it's been my entire adult life to be able to get to a point to voice this message of not fearing death because we are actually just walking, like John Lennon said, you get out of one car and you get into another. It's that seamless a transition.
Wow.
But I also don't want to discount the human part of us when someone dies, that you experience all these emotions of, sorrow and suffering and loss and grief, profound grief. I want to acknowledge that and hold that compassionately for people, but also remembering at the same time the bigger cosmic context is benevolence and oneness. And just, it'll help us if we can do that with our own transition and those of the people we love.
Wow. No, that was beautiful. So let me ask you this then, since you were shown that it was a mission, just like, I've heard it with other NDE experiencers that they showed them that it was already agreed upon. So the same when you were shown that it was a mission, were you shown that you had already agreed to it then?
Well, I believe we have soul agreements when we come in. We agree
Mm.
to certain lessons. And so mine had to be rewritten when I had my near-death experience because I got off track by going to the academy.
Oh,
So my soul was in the wrong place. And
wow.
so the crash got me out of that agreement that I had previously been in. And so my agreement was updated or upshifted to now include this whole experience of not being afraid because now I have a glimpse into what the other side looked like, and I can offer that experience, strength, and hope to other people and hopefully alleviate or eliminate their fears. Because if you're in non-resistance towards death, you're going to exit more gracefully, peacefully, and lovingly.
Absolutely. And well, aside, you also saw the life review, obviously. I know you had something you said about it that really stuck out to me about I mean, I've heard it other times as well about how you are showing how you impacted others as well, right? Like not just
Absolutely. So there's no judgment on the other side. We got that clear.
Mhm.
Okay. Everybody's agreement with that. No judgment. But you do have something called a life review. And that is where everything that you have said, thought, and done, all the behaviors, how it impacts yourself, others, and the world.
Mm.
So you will be on the receiving end of that. So if you caused another person a lot of pain and suffering, you're going to be put in that person's shoes, so to speak, and get what they felt by what your actions, your words, and your thoughts did to them. So and that's why if we can start being more mindful today and thinking higher, more loving thoughts, acting with a more loving kindness and intent toward others, and speaking. Watch our words, because that's why God, our Creator, gave us two ears and one mouth. We need to listen twice as much as we talk. Um, and right now, so many people are just talking at us, but really to be mindful and discerning with your words because we never know, Omar, whether or not, sorry, whether or not that we are going to, we could die today. Okay.
Mm.
None of us are guaranteed tomorrow. And I think we need to keep that top of mind in our daily life, not dwelling on it, but how do we want a conversation that we're having with someone, whether it's texting or talking or however we're interacting with them? How do we want that conversation to be left? Is it in light and love and uh, kindness, or is it going to be left with anger and resentment and
Mm.
gall and depression? You can leave conversations in, you have the choice and how you want to leave them. So before you even engage in a conversation, really think about what it is that you want to say and put it in a frame where if you didn't ever see this person again, you will be glad that you said what you said to them.
Mm.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely. That was perfect. I couldn't have said it any better myself. Um, I'm not sure how much time we've been talking already, but I want to be respectful of your time. I did want to ask you because obviously after this experience, now you're able to communicate with your guides basically at will, right? Like you're able to.
Yeah, yeah. I have a team of spirit guides, and my understanding with your guides are they're there to help us with our soul path. So
Mm.
what we came in to learn from the soul perspective and the soul's evolution, they will be able to keep us on track and help guide us on that soul's path. So I ask my spirit guides to please give me guidance on how to stay on my soul path.
Oh, okay.
And another good exercise to connect with your soul guides is to take a piece of paper like you're journaling and said, what is it that my guides want me to know today?
Mm.
And just see what happens. And do that
Oh.
again tomorrow, and you start that dialogue with them and start listening. But they really do come through. And then I have a whole set of angels that work with me. And if you think about in the Bible, the angels all had different functions or
Mm.
domains were over. Like Gabriel, Archangel Gabriel is over communication. You know, Raphael, I believe, is over like health. So they each have their own domains. So it's kind of like my team of angels. They come in and out as I need guidance in a certain area. So if I need help in a relationship, a certain angel will come in and help with the relationship or with the career or with the kids or whatever. So as you learn the lesson, they move out and another one may come in. So
Mm,
it's cool how they come and go as needed. And then of course you can connect to your ancestors. You can, there's just a whole realm up there that is waiting to help us. And that's only really happened for me, even though I've been on this journey for 42 years. I would say it has really skyrocketed in the last 5 years, that particular ability to connect with them and to trust that interaction. I really had to ask, like you were saying earlier, for that evidence to
mm,
know, that that was my truth. Because in America, especially, we have a reluctance to believe people and trust their memories. Like my
mm,
memory for the crash didn't come back for 19 years. And we have people who will say, well, how do you know you're not making it up? And really causing you to feel doubt if you're
mm,
not sure about this. And I'm like, I could have never made up this story. And in my case, I do have documentation about the crash itself saying I was dead and I did come back, and it wasn't the paramedic that, I mean, he did bring me back, but he really didn't. It was my soul that came back. So it's, and I think we do that with people that have been sexually abused. Their memory doesn't come
mm,
back for a long time. And you're like, well, why couldn't you remember it sooner? Well, the body just doesn't work like that. It does store all of these memories, and your body keeps the score on this. But sometimes in this lifetime, your body may not be ready to ever show you what really happened. It may be so traumatic to you that you would just go insane. So we
mm,
really have to trust that our guides and our angels have that highest good for us. And if we need to remember it, we will, and it will come back. Just like with me, it took me 2 days to recover the full memory, but it came back, and it came back word for word,
wow.
that I was able to put it in the book. So trust the process that you're given, what you need today to get you through today, and that each day you're getting that you're in the exact place that you need to be, because creator spirit, they are working for us, not against us. And we need to remember that, because some days it does feel like things are going against us, but
Mm,
that is not spirit's uh will. It is for things to go for us.
absolutely. And I was gonna ask you about that. So basically it's just it sometimes it takes so long to remember because it's like a safety thing, right? It's to our benefit for us not to remember at the moment, right? Or for
That's
19 years or
I know. And that whole time I was really lost. I was going
Mm,
to different churches thinking, okay, if I just got the right God, then I would connect with why I was feeling so empty in so many churches. And then I just really got it. I mean, to me now, I go into nature. That's where I really experience God and the creation and the beauty. And it just feels so alive and connectable to me. And I do think religion, some of the traditions in religion have a place. I'm not, anti it for that. I'm concerned that if it's dictating fear and rules to live by, that it's keeping you from being the person that you were created to be, because you're not going to thrive when you're in fear.
absolutely. So speaking of fear, I know before like a lot of people were giving what is it, projections or I forgot the word. I'm drawing a blank, but basically going into 2025. And for me, I wasn't feeling nothing negative, so I didn't, I guess, man, right now I'm drawing blanks with these words, but I didn't fall into the fear because I didn't feel any kind of fear. Were you shown anything coming up or anything for the future? I guess any message for humanity as a whole or
Well, I think the message is the love and oneness.
Mm,
And you have to look at yourself and start taking responsibility for yourself and your actions and your belief systems. And if they are not aligning with love and a oneness and a respect for all humanity and all sentient beings and Mother Earth, then you got a lot of course correction to do in your own life
mm,
and start practicing that from within. And as you do that, your light will continue to um, uh, expand,
mm,
and the love expands, and you start finding that people are being attracted to you, and you start realizing that the vibration that you're feeling from other people, you just want to be around people who are going to uplift you, not who are going to bring you down. And anybody that's coming at you with judgment and criticism and telling you you should be very have your radar up
mm.
for that word should. If somebody is that telling you, Omar, you should be doing your podcast this way. Okay. That is a red flag that they are shaming you. Okay. Should is a shame message. And when you do it to yourself, like I developed an eating disorder because I didn't get mental health help after the crash.
Mm.
My parents told the doctor, when the doctor said Nicole needs to see a psychiatrist and a psychologist because of the trauma she's been through, my mother looked at that doctor and said, Jesus is our psychiatrist. Now, Omar, I have to tell you and your audience, Jesus never came down and sat on the sofa and said, Nicole, let's talk about the crash and your self-hatred and how you disappointed your dad. So when the body has trauma and it's unresolved,
Mm.
guess what? It's going to course correct in a negative way. And in my case, back in 1984, it was compulsive overeating, known back then. Today,
Wow.
it's binge eating syndrome or disorder. And so, very, very secretive, shame based disease that I know a lot of people struggle with, both men and women. And I had it for 20 years. It did not go away until my memory came back. Think about that.
Wow, that's amazing.
So
Wow.
when my memory came back, all of a sudden, all these course corrections in my life came back as well, because I now understood why things were happening the way they were happening.
Mm, absolutely. Wow. And I know no, because I know there were a few things we talked about that I know we said we could do whole episodes on. So I'm just like, okay, let me not let me let me contain myself from hopping into that. But I guess, we could talk about like the depth of nutrition and even NTs, right? We talked about briefly about emotional technique, which would tie into that, wouldn't it?
Absolutely. And
Okay.
that's why, I went into nutrition to fix myself. A lot of us do that. We go into the fields that we're, we study the genre of the thing that's most disturbing or plaguing us. And I thought if I could just understand food and nutrition, I would understand why I couldn't stop eating something. Had no idea it was related to psychology, And so
Mm,
then I got my dietetics degree and went into helping people with eating disorders.
mm,
Even though I still had an eating disorder, I was still trying to help them, so it's been quite the journey in my life. And I feel grateful now that I've come into the spiritual wellness component of wellness, because it is important, if you are not healing and you are trying everything, that there could be a spiritual component called soul loss or soul fragmentation. And that is really important. And I actually had a shaman do a soul retrieval on me. And that's another thing you may want to explore if you're not getting the results from other modalities that you're trying to heal, because
mm,
that is, if I can just really quickly talk, there's three criteria to know, or three major symptoms to know if you've had soul loss. First of all, you don't want to be here. And I knew when my memory came back, I didn't want to be here. I did not want to get back in this body. So there's number one for me. Number two is this low level, consistent feeling that something is missing in your life. And
mm,
it's interesting to note that many compulsive behaviors and addictions actually fall into this statement. And for me, that was in the compulsive overeating that I had, because I was chronically feeling empty and lonely. I didn't have my memory, so I didn't understand. I was searching for this God that wasn't existing in all these religions that I was told it would be at. So I was going to every single religion trying to have that connection, and it was not happening. So I never got married till I was 40. So once again, my whole 20s and 30s, I was alone. I didn't even have a pet then. I did have some plants, okay, but it's not the same thing. And then the third one is you can't get over it. It just keeps, you know how there's a loop in your mind or your brain, it just keeps repeating and repeating, and you try to clear it or get rid of it, and it just keeps coming over and over and over again. And you just get stuck in this. And that's was me for so long. And so I really wish I had known earlier that although this was unavoidable and necessary at the time of my trauma, neglecting those hurt, fragmented parts of my soul and going on with my life as it was just led to other um, problems for me, just like anxiety and depression and PTSD and all of that. So
Wow.
I really, it's taught me all of this. My journey has empathy, compassion, sensitivity. Since I came back, I am a different person. I'll never be that Nicole that was 19 years old. Um, I have changed in terms of I can't handle toxins. I can't handle alcohol. I can't handle smoke. I mean, I've changed from a physical perspective, but also energetically. I can't be around groups of people or a heavy energy or negativity. I mean, I really have to protect my energy now. And I'm just a more sensitive soul. I'm, prone to, I can't handle bright lights or just lots of different things. So people do come back changed from these experiences, and we can learn a lot from them, and hopefully lessons that we can implement in our life now so that we don't have to have such an extensive life review on the other side.
Oh, wow. Absolutely. No, that's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. Um, and so you still you offer services to help others with these.
Well, I've taken a break from that, to be
Oh,
honest.
okay. Okay.
Yeah, I do NET, which we can talk about later. I do that very part-time now, and I wrote my book, You Are Deathless, and so I've just taken some time since I'm a one-person show here. I'm promoting it myself, doing things like being on your show and making people aware of this. And I did my Audible. I did it myself. I
Oh,
voiced
wow.
self, which was a whole experience in terms, another realm of healing. It's one thing to write your story, it's another thing to read your story,
Mm.
because that, whoa, you read your story and then to listen to your own voice tell your story. I had to go back in therapy again after all that. It brought up more stuff. It's like,
Wow.
wow, you really get it that that's you. It's not some third person. You align your body, your mind, your soul, and your spirit now, and you are one. And you realize that really did happen to you. It's not some other person or part of you. It was that you really have gone through all that, you know? So it took
Absolutely.
me 13 years to write the book. So I'm authentic in it and I speak my truth. And I think that's what people really are looking for now. And it doesn't matter if it pisses off my family or friends or whatever, or the church, it doesn't matter anymore. This was my experience and my truth. And it resonates and aligns with almost 90% of NDE experiences.
Absolutely. Wow. And I'll put the links to so people could get in contact with you and find the book and everything. But if you want to talk about your website and where they can reach you.
Sure. So you can find me at www.nicolekerr.com. I have a contact page on there if you want to write me. I also have a newsletter I put out every quarter or so. My book is on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, and you can get it from your independent bookstore. It's only $9.99. Okay. And if you're in
Mhm.
North Carolina, you can get it in the library system. Okay. I had to learn
Oh,
all about libraries and how you had to go to each individual library and put your book in there. So
oh.
not like you can just put it through the whole system. So I do have it available there. And also I did the Audible version. The pictures of in the book are up on my website. So you can just click through the pictures there since you're not getting to see them on the Audible version. And I'm on Kindle as well. And I would just, trying to spread the word there and give people to help them deal with that fear of the unknown of death and worrying about that, because your relationship with God really does, and what you believe is God really does influence your belief about death. And I think that's the biggest trigger a lot of people have, is somehow feeling unworthy to go to heaven, or that they broke some rules and therefore they're not going to meet the criteria to get there somehow, all of that. And that's just not true. All of our souls are going there. Some who are very evil are going at a real slower pace, but most of us go right on over.
Absolutely. No, no, thank you so much. Have you started writing any other books like about
I am writing some blogs and some things like that right now, and just kind of focusing on promoting the book. And I think, this one took me 13 years. People don't really
Mm,
understand what it's like. You've written a book, it's an arduous process to get it to the finish line, and I just am not sure. Spirit hasn't given me the next download, so to speak, for the next book. So I'm going to kind of do my part where we're at in the collective consciousness right now, with a lot of transformation going on for everybody right now. And I would say that that is what is happening in 2025, is massive transformation in yourself and also in the world, and that the light is breaking through. But unfortunately, it's going to take a little bit of time to
mm,
break through a lot of these dark systems that have been in place for a long time. And we've just got to fasten our seatbelts and hold to this higher truth and love, and speak your truth, because it is about having the playing field leveled so that everyone is respected for who and what they are.
absolutely. Wow, that was beautiful. Thank you, Nicole, so much. I'm beyond honored to have been able to speak with you. Such beautiful energy. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Namaste to you.
Ah,
Blessings.
likewise. And yeah, hopefully we can do it again and speak about some of the other topics. So okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Life may move fast, or it may move slow. I met a silly man who said he make it slow. We look up out towards space, or even at the sky. One that gets away, but never look inside. Breathe in, breathe out. Life is a maze, but we'll figure this out. I mean, human beings, I ain't got no doubt.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, sometimes you just feeling it, you know what I'm saying? You just feeling it. And I wanna feel this way forever, ever.